Fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. I got Mr. Michael Hawley. He was missing last week, so he's here again this week.
That is correct. Now we can call me Monday Mike.
Yeah, Monday Mike, because right. Wednesday he forgot to show up.
Yeah, I know. It's Woden's Day.
Wow. Yeah, it happens when you get to your age, right? You know that.
Yeah, absent-minded professor. That is absolutely true. What's your name?
Yeah, things start falling apart quickly, but that's okay. I did something for you.
Oh.
Yeah, we got the doctor in the house here.
I know it, and because I am a vet, I'm very interested in what she has to say about us.
Yeah, you're going to have to set up an appointment afterwards, so you can spend some, because you're going to need,
yes.
I know one
Explain
show.
why I'm the way I am, yes.
There's no way she could fix you in this short of time. I don't know if it's possible. But what we're doing is we're going to talk about a book that she was one of the writers with, and it's called All the Broken Angels, and it is Pat Black-Gould. So thank you for coming on the show, Pat.
Thank you for having me, Alan, and hello, Michael, and thank you for your service.
Hello, thank you.
So what is this book you've written, and you wrote it, your co-author was Steve Hardiman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this book. What is the premise of it? Like, what was it about?
I can give you a little bit about it. It's personal in that it's woven from my own experiences growing up, and going through, through adulthood at the time of the Vietnam War. But we told it through the lens of historical fiction, okay? And it follows two cousins who are from a close-knit family, Cate and Albie, and they moved from the rigid society and the conformity of the 50s to like the dynamic and tumultuous 60s and 70s, right at the time when we're dealing with the world transforming. There's music, there's fashion, there's civil rights, feminism, the dawn of the LGBTQ movement, and all of this is unfolding right at in the backdrop of the Vietnam War. It even starts when the kids are very, very young. And Albie always wanted to be a soldier, from day one. It just so happens that he comes of age during the Vietnam War. But basically these two kids were inseparable when they were children, but as they grew up, they were taking different paths in life, and they developed like opposing viewpoints on religion, on the Cultural Revolution, and on the Vietnam War. And it was written in a way so that I could show that divide, okay? And their relationship as they drifted, he's gung-ho, G.I. Joe, as the girl in the book calls him, Cate, okay? And Albie's all set. We know it's Vietnam, but the Vietnam is playing out on the TV for the first time. We're seeing this war, and Cate is a nervous wreck, worried to death that he's gonna go there. So she becomes more of the side of being the hippie, and the protest, and they become divided, and that division sort of serves as a metaphor for the country divided, and neither of them could talk to each other. They couldn't accept that there might be a value or merit in the other's perspective, and we try to navigate those relationships as we're navigating everything that's going on in the world at that time, And basically, I guess I could say that the novel just really honors my family, my roots, the experiences of women in that era, and the sacrifice of those who served, as well as the families, who waited and worried about them back home. I'm a psychologist, and my focus was working with Vietnam veterans, and I also have a cousin, and his name is Albie, and he did go off to war. So it was important to me to tell the story of Albie. I had to reset it. I did some time shift in terms of that, but also to tell the story of the amazing men and women who told me and were willing to share with me their histories and what the Vietnam War did to them as they came out of it, those who did survive. And what the families on the home front, we look at how war is examined from that perspective as well. So it covers a broad range.
Yeah, and it was a tough time. It's kind of a coincidence. I've been writing a story. I've been working on a couple of them, but I'm doing a book that covers the Charles Manson. It's a different perspective. It's kind of, I'm going through all the interviews with them and people around them, and I'm putting together that way. So I've been doing this for a while. But I also get into a lot of this going on because it has a huge effect on what was going on with the Manson family and the communes, about the Vietnam War and about, the Chicago 8 or 7,
Yep.
and even the Weatherman Underground.
Yep.
Right. And a lot of that was new to me, but I've been going through and watching all these people talk and watching all the old videos and stuff. It's pretty alarming on how close, how it's almost the same battles with Nixon and the colleges and stuff and all the things that we see kind of repeating itself today in a sense. And even like when we talk about the Chicago 7 or 8, they were actually charged for really, protesting in essence. So it's kind of like now, in a sense, people have this, the same disagreements amongst groups. And it's kind of, so when you capture that with your characters, how do you get into the mindset of the characters to hold off the dialogue like this? How do you work that out yourself?
My background is in theater, actor, director, producer, playwright. I used to run a murder mystery theater company and a summer stock theater company, and so acting is kind of in my blood. So I did not have any problem writing the dialogue and the characters. They talk to me. They don't stop talking to me is the problem. Sometimes when I'm in the middle of something, I am comfortable.
See, Al, that's good that people talk to us.
Yeah, see?
Okay.
There. Yeah. And the thing about it is, not only do they talk to me, but if they don't like something, they're going to let me know as a character. You're not going this way. No. It sounds kind of crazy. My poor husband, he's like, you're at it again, And if I'm taking a walk, the easiest thing for me to do is have the phone, because I talk back to them and they talk to me. So to have the phone up to my ear as if like I'm doing a phone call.
Right.
But it makes it
you're making it more difficult for us to decide on who's talking to themselves and
Exactly. Yeah. So that's not the problem. For me, it was learning and grasping the novel format of narration. I can describe things and be vivid about it and I can see it, but how do I put that on paper? And my co-author was very good with really helping me pull that parts of it together, This dialogue is never a problem. Characters are never a problem, And also being a psychologist, I can develop like an arc for a character. I know how much I want them to grow or not grow, depending on what their circumstances are, so I can build that.
So Albie and Cate do eventually get back together, kind of?
Yes.
Is it okay.
Before something tragic happens, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
gotcha.
Yes, they did. There's a lot of, things they do. Yes, they try to, because she's very stubborn and opinionated, and he gets to kind of be stubborn and opinionated and everything too. But they love each other. And they were able to try to look at, we are more than our arguments. We are family. And that has got to be first in all of that. And there's a grandmother who's a foundation in the book that as kids, every time they argue, would try to stand very firm with that. I think a lot of times today, that might be very hard for us to do, But it was important that they connected, and that they could reconnect it. And letters came from Vietnam. And an interesting story about this, though, when I set this, I set Albie, I changed the time of Albie a little bit because the real Albie was actually in the war in 67, 68. And I needed to move it more to a little bit later, 1970s. Early 1970, okay, and from the regiment and everything, because I just needed to parallel my timeline. It was too confusing trying to figure out to go a little earlier. But I married her for the same time, and I found the regiment that he was in. I couldn't use that for him because they were closing shop pretty much there. But but this area he was stationed in was called Paradise. Okay, it was a nickname of that area because it's sort of a joke that the soldiers named that. But I should preface this by saying the kids went to Catholic school, and there's a whole bunch of stuff on heaven and hell and sin and everything like that. She ends up moving to Hell's Kitchen, New York. So I had one stationed in Paradise and another put in hell. You know? And when I saw Paradise on the South China Sea, I went, "Oh my God, you can't get better than this." Yeah. You know, it was perfect to have Paradise and hell when you deal with the upbringing and everything. So it worked.
Did you actually have a picture in your mind of your two main characters, Albie and Cate? Do you see them? Like, do you have kind of an idea of what they would look like?
Yeah. Actually, Cate was kind of like me, scrawny, kind of smallish side, hair that never did what she wanted and was, dirty blonde, and she always wanted to be the girls who had pretty hair. And Albie did not look like my cousin Albie at all. Albie was actually, I needed somebody bigger and sturdier and protective. And there was a kid that I went to grammar school with who fit the bill of Albie perfectly. And I even told my friend Ed, we're actually still in touch on Facebook. We still have our grammar school kids together. And I pictured him that way, a bit on the stocky side, taller, so he was my Albie, definitely, as opposed to the real Albie. Yeah.
Did they take away your driver's license when they found out you were hearing voices? I'm just wondering if maybe they, if you're driving.
Well, as an actor, you explore the dynamics of a character. You really get into them, right? So it's not unusual for me to walk around the house and be Cate, or be harder to be Albie, because I'm trying to figure out how do I walk around with a stocky build and everything, and have that feel, because
probably freaked out your husband.
Yeah, really. Exactly. So how do I do that? Because I want to create the body language as well. And so they would talk to me. They always talk to me, and they will tell me, "I don't like this. This isn't really working for my character." And they were usually right. If I try to force them to go somewhere they don't want to go, they don't go there. So it's like, okay. And it helped me really guide that story. I kind of knew how I wanted to end it. But I'm a pantser. I just have that ability to just sort of go where they take me.
It's a historical fiction, so you have control over a lot of what happens, and stuff like that. So I guess in one way it's good, because in a sense, I'd imagine certain justice is, it's prevailed. It happens in your story, right? Because in real life, we know it doesn't.
Right.
There's a lot of things that don't. I write a lot of nonfiction and true crime, and I know that a lot of that I can't control. It just, these people are who they are, and they did what they did, and the best you can do is help people understand it, But I can't control the end, and they don't always there isn't always justice. But I'd imagine, in a sense, you do have a little control over that, so you kind of have a better way of handling that sort of. It's not all negative. Right?
No, and this is tough because there's something that's really important, but I kind of don't want to go to the end, giving the ending away. But I connected with somebody who knew my cousin, and I found out a lot of information and everything as well. And that really helped me build a lot of the final chapters and everything. But a certain amount of control, and I needed to bring the story to where I brought the story to. And also there were other veterans who really wanted to contribute to this project, and who gave me what it was like coming home. Who gave me what they were faced with, and the fact that they couldn't, they were told not to wear uniforms. Because they were called names, which there's some denial, and people that just say, "No, that never happened." Oh, I sat in front of a lot of veterans who told me exactly what it was like for them.
It did. Yeah.
So it was real. It happened.
Yeah.
So their stories were important to tell as well. I just had to find the context of how I can tell them.
I have a question, Pat. A lot of your audience will be a younger generation that has no clue, or maybe in school they may have learned about it, but you're getting them to kind of live it in there. Were you thinking about that?
Very much so, because I knew I was going to have readers in my age group. I'm a baby boomer. I'm going to have them. What in the world is going to pull young folks in? Because let's face it, do they read history? Does history have a meaning to them? I was growing up and I had no interest in history and no interest in going to history class other than the fact that there was a really cute boy in one of my classes, and that was the motivation to not skip that class in high school. Other than that, I really, until I started writing my first book on the Holocaust, and Little Girl During the Holocaust, did I really go, oh my God, I'm really getting into history. And for this, how do I get younger generations to really appreciate this? Because we're aging, and these stories are not going to be there for us to tell long. And my fear is that history is going to disappear, truthfully, and they're going to be rewritten. So are they ever going to get these stories out? So my way of doing justice is trying to get them out there. And when I do have young folks read it, the reactions are really fascinating. I get things like, my grandfather lived through this, and I'm sharing the book with him. And all of a sudden I'm realizing how old I am. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's right. That's me too, my age. But the fact that one of my writers in my, and one of my cohorts writing, critique groups, is in his 30s. And my co-author and I went into detail describing the draft lottery in 1969. December 1st, 1969. We watched that video over and over and over again as it was portrayed on TV. And this man was like, this really happened? You mean you actually, these people actually had to go to war? They had to? Well, some went to Canada, yeah. But yes. And they were shocked. So I would get feedback from writers like, I want to know more about this time. I could interest them in the music. I could interest them in the fashion. I could interest them in some of the TV shows, but the culture and the political and the history, pulling them in, I think for any type of a historical book is hard, So I'm working on trying to get that interest. If it's not on, and how many younger people are reading books? They're on, YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is called right now, all those things, so are they even going to read a book? So I'm hoping that I can tap into the younger generation. And I really try to present that younger generation from a couple of different perspectives. Cate, who is growing up and kind of, does her own little turn of events and kind of wants to see more of the world. Albie, who's very steadfast. He knows exactly what it wants into his life. And Cate moves to New York City, which, as an actress, I did. And the world opened up and I met people that were amazing people, and that grew a whole network. And in the book, as things get very difficult in Cate's world, it was these people, who are very important. And if I could just tell you a little bit about a few of them, Cate meets who becomes a dear friend, Chris, who was gay and came from a religious family, and he was thrown out of his family by his parents. But yet Chris manages to, he's upset about that, but he doesn't hold on to that hanger. He says, I'm going to sort of find a new family. I guess in today's terms, they call it a found family. People who are going to be there, people who are going to care for me. He was also from a military family. He didn't feel that he could serve. And this I created out of a lot of I was the LGBTQ coordinator for the Veterans Administration in Georgia. So I got to work with LGBTQ individuals, and he didn't feel that he could serve. He was worried about what the ramifications would be. He couldn't serve in silence. So in the book, but he respects the military, and he ends up writing a play about Vietnam by interviewing a whole bunch of vets. He, along with a veteran, does that. And another decides he will serve in silence. So Cate, who is like against the war, she's not against the veterans, but at a lot of times that got very confusing, I think, in our history, because many people didn't just become against the war, they blamed the veterans for what happened. And that is so deeply troubling to me. That hurts. And my veterans would come home from the war and say, Kat, PTSD was really horrible, but I got to tell you, the treatment I got when I got home was worse, and it creates its own PTSD. I capture that in the book too. I realize I'm going all over the place, but I'm really trying to give an idea of how, it's important was to cover the type of people that Cate encountered that broadened her world and her realization that, oh my gosh, I see what these veterans are. They went here. They might not like what had happened, but they were signed there. It was their duty. It was their obligation, to serve. Many of them didn't know what they were coming home to. They had no clue what was going on in the home front, So it was important to get those stories across too. And I feel bad now when I think of these guys and women too who are coming home and were just despised and hated and called these names.
Yeah.
Spit at.
And just,
Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. Is that sort of is that kind of the premise, or is that kind of a subtext that you want readers to take away from the book? Is that it, or is there something more?
Yeah. Oh, I think there is just so much in terms of, just keeping an open mind, and the ability to be able to be resilient with what happens to you. All of the characters go through something tough in their lives. In the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, one of Cate's friends develops polio. Okay. One of another friend who was in the military has an extremely bad injury, and Cate suffers something that the whole family suffers that she's got to deal with. So there's themes of loss and resilience and going back but yet recovering to the best of you can. And then with what you learn, kind of a soldier tells her, pay it forward. What you've learned, what you've lived through now, where do you put what you're doing? How do you do this? You pay it forward. You open the doors for others to learn too. But resilience is a really important part of that story, and being open enough to be able to make changes.
So, this being very personal and very important to you in a lot of the subjects and a lot, even just the whole book, the story and everything. How do you think, now that you've finished writing it and it's done, it's out and published, how's it changed you?
I think I've learned, and I continue to learn, to be a better student of history and keep my eyes a lot more open to the news, the real news when we find it, and being more conscious of things, because I think people close their mind and searching the truth, searching for the places where we can find what would be the truth, or at least as close to it as possible, because we were given a gift in history of having knowledge and a base, and we're losing that. So it sort of made me a better seeker of truth, but it also, I'm a presenter. I love talking. I'm an actor. What the heck? I like to talk, So one of my favorite things is doing presentations and sort of educating the public, and educating people on learning from history, learning those lessons, discover this, because right now we are not doing that. In both my books do, but we're avoiding this. So I really kind of want to spread that message of look for, seek that truth, and continue to seek that truth, and be open to others, and try to find a way that this division somehow doesn't make us hate each other so much that we lose each other. Because Cate and Albie could have gone their separate ways, and that's a family lost. I don't know if that can be returned. And the sadness of it, as a psychologist, I'm supposed to be positive, and my hope is that we can find a way to bridge the gaps that we've created, and to be open to people. I mean, what we're seeing happen with the LGBTQ individuals now, transgender people, my transgender clients, they can't serve, they have to leave. The LGBTQ people, and especially the trans people down in Florida, are leaving Florida because they're scared. So we've closed doors, and we've shut people out, and basically we're all the same. And so I really try to preach, accept our differences. We are our differences. That makes us who we are. That's what's so wonderful about us.
Yeah. It's kind of the same fights today as it was, in the 60s, the 50s. I see the same things. You go through the papers, you're doing research, and you're going through stuff. It's the same thing. The names change, the people that are fighting change and all that.
History repeating itself?
Yeah, but it's the thing is, it should do it less and less as we have more access to knowledge. But
instead of more and more.
Yeah, it's not really. It's not. It's kind of, it's kind of.
Hence your book.
Yeah, that's right.
Hence your book.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we got the book. Now we need everyone to read it, and then we'll be okay.
I would like
That's
that.
The only thing that isn't going to be okay is Pat's, you're not waking up with a shovel by the bed or anything like that. Nothing, eh?
No.
The voices aren't kind of telling you.
Oh, no.
No,
But the characters for the next book are starting to speak to me. So I got to be careful. I got to watch that.
Oh, yeah. So,
Gotcha.
so what are you working on now? You're working on another book?
Well, I'm going to take some, when I lost the characters, when I ended the book, and you had mentioned by ending the book, I grieved the loss of these characters because part of them are my family. There's a strong family in there. They're all gone. The majority of them are gone, right? Are gone now. And this was a tribute to them. So one of the things that I need to do is I need to find a way. I'm bringing some of those people back. Well, some of the characters back, the minor characters, and focusing a bit more on their stories. And this is going to sound absolutely crazy, but I was a professional mime. I know this is another part of my life. I know. I went to mime school. I actually all did that stuff.
Well, you're really quiet and shy, so
I'm really quiet and shy, right? Yeah, I was. And I really want to talk a bit about, because there really is an incredible culture, being an actor and everything in New York, is just the idea of bringing some of that craziness of mime into this character and talking about what it was like at the time and what that whole culture was like, and trying to go into something there that brings up a bunch of characters in, but also talks about the mime world, which that's sort of not there as much, but yeah, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's how it goes. That's the process, and that's what people do like to hear about, and that's kind of interesting. That because quite often that's the question I'll ask: what happened to your characters now that the book's done? Are they still there? Are they gone? And all that. And a lot of people say they're gone, and some people still hear them and still interact with them and stuff. And
yeah,
it's that's just it's
they're some of them I think are going to come back. I've got to have the veterans come back because I don't think their stories are told enough. Female vet stories aren't told as much. So I'm looking at that. So mine is going to be a whole bunch of interesting characters, I think. But definitely the stories are going to come back. Yeah.
Well, when in doubt, you could have it was all a dream, right? And then
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Isn't that the way? Well, listen, I want you to, before we go, I need you to talk about where people find you. Do you have social media set up? Do you have a website?
Oh, yeah.
So where does a reader or a fan find you or get a hold of you if they have something to say?
They can find me at patblackgould.com. And they can find me under my name in Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And they can find my books on Amazon and Ingram, and it's on Kindle Unlimited. And so they can find me there on Goodreads as well. There are a couple of different sources.
Yeah, well, there you go. We can find you. Do you hang out in any coffee shops or just?
Oh, I miss the coffee shops in New York. I just hang out in the mall a lot. And actually, yeah, come down to Florida here and come visit.
I'm not crossing the border.
Oh, I don't blame you right now. I have to say.
I am just sitting back with. Yeah. I've got 2 big bags of popcorn, and I'm just say no. Anyway, no, it's always a pleasure talking to people, and especially writers and stuff. So now the book, All the Broken Angels, and we've had one of the authors with us today, Pat Black-Gould. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Alan, and thank you, Michael. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to both of you. I appreciate it.
Yes, so nice speaking with you, Pat.
You too.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.